Baby Ava may be the most mysterious baby that has ever lived. Born on January 29, 2021, at least she was born in January, sometime before January. Nobody knows the exact date because her birth was never recorded, not by a doctor, not by her parents, not by anyone except possibly Rachel Matthews, her mother. When exactly in January this young mother gave birth is unknown, but what we do know is that she did it alone, in secret, in her own home in the suburbs of Manchester, England. When baby Ava stopped crying and went suspiciously quiet, nobody noticed until it was too late. Hello and welcome to this channel. Today's video is a very special video. This is a real-life horror story that was never solved, the tragic mystery of baby Ava. It was the winter lockdown of 2020. People were dying, grocery stores were running out of food, and in the suburbs of Manchester, England, a young woman named Rachel Matthews was about to give birth to a baby girl, all by herself, in secret, in her own home. Rachel had moved into the home at 37 Cromwell Road, in the suburb of Chorlton just 2 months earlier. She was 24 years old and had been described by her neighbors as quiet and kept to herself. They also said that she seemed a bit troubled, like something was bothering her, but they didn't think much of it. They just assumed that it was the stress of living through a global pandemic. Now, it wasn't until later that her neighbors would come to realize that Rachel wasn't just stressed, she was pregnant. And even later than that, they would wish they hadn't known. On the morning of January, a neighbor heard crying coming from inside Rachel's home. It sounded like a baby. At first, the neighbor thought nothing of it. Perhaps it was just Rachel listening to a recording of a baby on her phone or something. But the crying continued throughout the day and well into the evening, and then it stopped. Concerned, the neighbor contacted the police. But when officers arrived at Rachel's house, she refused to open the door. They could hear noises inside the house, but when they tried to talk to Rachel, she just screamed at them to go away. Another neighbor said that she had seen Rachel huddling on the floor of her house and rocking back and forth while mumbling to herself. By now, the neighbor knew it was a baby, but still she didn't call the police. She just stood there watching Rachel as she carried on. Finally, Rachel stopped making noise, and the neighbor didn't see her again for days. After the third day, the neighbor contacted the police again. She told them she was worried about the welfare of the baby and begged them to intervene, but the police refused. They said that since Rachel had closed her blinds, they couldn't get proof that she was doing something wrong, so there was nothing they could do. The neighbor was furious. She grabbed some gardening shears, cut the cord to the blind, and flung it open. She looked inside and saw something that made her scream. It was February. Rachel's front room was filthy. There were beer bottles everywhere, pizza boxes piled up, and dirty dishes scattered around. On the table was an empty Moses basket. In it was a pacifier, some blankets, and a teddy bear. But no baby. Rachel was nowhere to be found, but she had left something behind. On the wall next to the Moses basket was a message scrawled in lipstick. She was too quiet, then too loud, then gone. The neighbor quickly dialed 999 and told them what she had found. As the sirens grew louder, the neighbor stood there praying that it wasn't too late. When the officers arrived, they forced their way into the house and began searching everywhere for the missing baby. They found bottles and clothes, lots of bottles and clothes, but no baby. Then they found Rachel. She was hiding under a blanket in the corner of the bedroom, mumbling to herself. The officers quickly got her out of the house and into the back of the police car. As they drove her to the station, one of the officers asked her where the baby was. She responded by screaming at him and spitting in his face. When he leaned in to try to calm her down, she whispered something that sent chills down his spine. She was too quiet, then too loud, then gone. At the police station, Rachel was interviewed, but she didn't say much. She answered their questions by screaming abuse and making accusations. But every time they tried to ask her about the baby, she became strangely quiet and refused to cooperate. By now, her neighbors were beginning to panic. Who was the father of the baby? Where was the baby now? Was the baby dead? And if so, where was the body? The police had more questions than answers, but there was something that nobody understood. Why had Rachel written the lipstick message? What did it mean? Was the baby really gone? Gone where? As Rachel was being questioned by the police, her neighbors decided to take matters into their own hands. They surrounded the house and demanded that Rachel tell them what had happened to the baby. The police told them to go home, that they would sort it out, but the neighbors wouldn't leave. They stood there chanting, "Tell us where she is," until Rachel came out of the house with the police and showed them a photo. It was the only photo that had ever been taken of Baby Ava. It was blurry, but you could just about make out a tiny baby girl wrapped in a blanket. It was clear that the baby did exist. The question was, where was she now? As Rachel handed over the photo to the police, she broke down and cried, "I didn't mean for it to happen, I promise." But she never explained what she meant. She never told the police what had happened to her baby. In fact, she was so uncooperative that they eventually lost interest in her and released her without charge. That was almost 5 years ago, and the case of missing baby Ava has never been solved. To this day, nobody knows what happened to the baby after those last cries in the night. Did she die accidentally? Did Rachel have some kind of mental breakdown? Was she abducted by someone outside the house? Or was the whole thing a lie? Some people believe that Rachel made the whole thing up to explain the lipstick message. She wrote it herself. And the reason why she didn't want the police to search the house was because there was no baby. Now, most people don't believe that because there was a Moses basket, teddy bear, and other things that proved that at one point a baby did live there. One thing we do know is that Rachel didn't have any family or friends. Whenever she went to the grocery store, people said that she looked like she was carrying a bump under her jacket. So it's hard to believe that she would have been able to hide a full-term pregnancy for so long. And if the baby was born alive, why wouldn't she have reached out to someone? Even if she didn't want to raise the baby, surely she would have found someone to help her with the birth. And what about the lipstick message? She wrote it, but why? If the baby died accidentally, why would she need to write a message explaining it? There are so many theories as to what happened, but no one knows for sure. After the police dropped the investigation, Rachel returned to her home and barricaded herself inside. She boarded up the windows and turned off all of the electricity. No one had heard from her until April, when the police were forced to break into the house because they believed that she might have taken her own life. They found her alive, but she was taken to a psychiatric hospital. While she was there, she wrote a letter to the police. In it, she threatened to hurt herself if they ever came near her house again. After that, she was kept under close watch and was never allowed outside. What happened to Baby Ava will probably never be solved, but there may be more to the story than anyone knows. While Rachel was in the hospital, someone leaked a bag of photos to the press. They included photos of Baby Ava's Moses basket and teddy bear, but also photos of Rachel's cell phone. On her cell phone were photos and videos that nobody was supposed to see, videos that could prove once and for all what happened to Baby Ava. But who leaked them? Was it Rachel? Did she do it to draw attention to herself, or was it one of the doctors or nurses at the hospital? Maybe they felt sorry for her, or maybe they wanted to help solve the case. Whatever the reason, these hidden photos could hold the key to everything. Stay tuned for part 2, where we uncover hidden evidence that could prove what happened to Baby Ava.